Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Rahul Verma. I work here at the Center for Policy Research. Welcome to the 16th edition of this series on how India votes. In last 6 to 8 months, we have covered and discussed many topics, including whether foreign policy matters or not, whether welfare matters for election outcomes or not. And today we have a very esteemed set of panelists to discuss whether campaigns shape election outcomes in India, especially now that we have just less than a week left for the first phase of polling that will start on 19th April. And the reason I just to, before I introduce my guest to you, there are two reasons why I wanted to have a conversation on campaigns. First, of course, because political parties spend a lot of time and resources and money in election campaigns, and hopefully they do try to influence election outcomes in their favor through these campaigns. What surveys over last 2 decades have informed us that approximately one-fourth of the voters make their mind who to finally vote for during this campaign period in last 14 days. And there is a segment which actually decides in last 48 hours. Uh, my own analysis of this group of 25% people, I think they are into two groups. One is basically very strategic and sophisticated voter, which is trying to get more information to decide who's winning, and then they want to go on the side of winner. And then there is a group of voter who's not very interested in election and it's just going out there to vote and waits for the last moment to get some information to vote. So that's basically this 20 to 25%, which can be swung during this campaign period, which is what parties are trying to do. The second reason is that if campaigns matter for Indian elections, if campaign decides who is going to win or lose elections, then what about all other theories that we have about Indian politics, which is that Indians only vote on caste. Caste don't change in last 10, 15 days. So if caste is deciding voting factor, then how does campaign sort of influences this? And what is it about campaign that changes in last 13, 14 days? Is it just that whichever party manages to put more boots on the ground or able to distribute more gifts or money on the ground? So what is it about campaign that leads to changes in election outcome? And so to discuss this, we have a very esteemed set of guests, and I carefully chose these three names because they can offer three very different perspectives on election campaigns. Of course, all three of them are veterans. I'm going to use the age logic. So Yashwant Deshmukh, he's a founder, director of C Voter, a very premier polling organization in country, and they have been polling for now more than 2 decades. And what is different about C Voter from all other polling agencies in the country, that C Voter does a daily tracker. So they at least reach out to 1,200 voters across the country on a daily basis. And so they have this wealth of data for over a decade to be able to look at how issues change in the run-up to election, how leadership and party popularities changes in the run-up to election. So welcome, Yashwant Bhai, at CPR, and we look forward to your perspective. Next, we have Jayashree Sundar. She's author, she teaches at business school, and she has a very vast experience with advertising world. And one of the important reasons I wanted her to be here is that she recently, that she has a book which is on 2004 election campaign. She was very closely involved with the 2004 Congress election. And the title of the book, if you haven't got a chance to look at it, Don't Forget 2004. And I hope Jayashree is going to bring some perspective from 2004 Congress campaign and how it, in some ways, every time now a pollster basically tries to put out a number who's going to win, we get reminded about 2004, because in 2004, more pollsters were giving BJP an edge, and ultimately Congress came out as a single largest party. So what happened in that 2004 campaign, Jayashree would be able to provide us a better perspective on that. And finally, we have Shashi Shekhar. He's former CEO of Prasar Bharati. Shashi ji is in his old avatar, was part of Infosys. He comes from the tech world. But the reason I wanted him to be here, he was central to the 2014 Prime Minister Modi campaign. After sort of like Infosys, he started Niti Digital and Niti Central, and both of these organizations played a very crucial role in the 2014 Modi campaign. And then 2017, he took over as the CEO of Prasar Bharati. So someone who understands both the power of technology as well as power of media, but also like one of the most important campaigns of last 2 decades, which is 2004, because in some ways, while most polls had predicted BJP is going to be ahead, no one had imagined that BJP is going to breach the 272 mark. Right. So in that sense, it changed the nature of Indian politics that now that BJP can actually pitch, we are going to win 370. Even when the polls were suggesting that BJP may win big, all pollsters were historically, because for 30 years we had never seen a single party majority, we were hesitant to say that BJP is going to be a single party majority. So three of you, welcome and thank you again for joining us. Let me start this conversation. And before, after 2 rounds of conversation, I will start weaving in questions that come on Zoom, and I'll also start inviting people here. So friends on Zoom, just put your questions on Q&A box, and my friend Arnaz will send it to me on phone, and I will weave those in my questions. So thank you again, Yashwant Bhai. As you know, like opening remarks for 7 to 8 minutes. What data tells you about how much campaign matters and in what ways?
Thank you, Rahul. Thanks for the amazing opportunity to talk to all of us over here. Uh, I can talk about a little bit of data and a little of my own experience of covering the elections as a journalist on the ground, and campaigns absolutely do matter, no doubt about that. Micro and macro in every possible way. However, I think the way they are being used now, not just because of the technology that is done. I believe that it is somehow aimed more on the management of relative turnout and turnout factor at large. Uh, Earlier in the, those who are here who have seen the elections in the 70s, 80s, and so on, like that, uh, the door-to-door campaign used to be critical before the technology happened. But even on the polling day, a lot dependent on your foot soldiers, on how you are ensuring that people who are uh, in touch with your campaign actually come out and vote. I think over over the last 3 decades, this door-to-door thing has started going down, and people are using media, mass media, to come across with one thematic campaign and like that. Earlier, the campaigns were quite used to be very, very organic in nature, that the slogans and the things used to come out from the public, you know. Uh, it was not really designed by netas. If I remember 67 things which were used, or 77 or 89, which majority of us, I think, would be remembering that. So the typical catchy slogans were more or less actually were a product of the cadre or the people on the ground, and the netas used to pick it up and start using in their rallies. Right now, we are looking at a campaign which is a top to bottom kind of approach, where there are campaign designers who come up with catchy one-liners, and the themes and the data crunching, that what you should be focusing on, what you should be leaving it out, and so on and so forth. But I see a tendency of data being used, or campaigns being used, more as a firefighting mechanism rather than a well thought of strategy to do so. So the thing which in the last few elections I have started observing is that more than influencing what the people think on a certain issue, uh, I think the campaigns have become more of a tool to influence the turnout, that no matter you are angry with me, upset with me, but I need to pull you out from your home and take you to the polling booth, because I know you are so polarized that if you are upset with me, you are unlikely to swing to other person, you are more likely to sit at home. And that's a pretty big change. And it's not a change which campaigns have introduced, it's the change which the general political atmosphere and how the people are now reacting. So, in our line of work, there is one term which we use very often, swing. We always talk about swing. Swing means party A to party B, party B to party C. That's how the good old psychology used to work. And that has more or less kind of stopped. When I say stop, it's simply because I don't really see too much of data swinging from party A to party B or party B to party A these days. Uh, Even though when Rahul says that 25% of the people actually decide in the final few weeks, when you ask about their previous voting recalls, actually there is not much change. It's just that in the last few weeks they decide, okay, I will go out and vote. No, I have decided to sit at. So, so campaign from that perspective is has changed. You know, the campaign is no more about persuasion that okay, Jashi ji, please don't vote for Shashi, please vote for me. Campaign is more Shashi ji, I know you are upset with me. I know if you are angry, you will not vote for Shashi, but you will sit at home. And I somehow have to ensure that you just come out and vote. And the most recent example of that has been Madhya Pradesh, where the data and the result went in completely different directions. For the almost 1 year, our trackers were significantly showing a mood for change, significantly showing a positive in that way, numbers for the Congress, if I say so. But one thing which we were always wondering in the number, that there was no anger, there was fatigue. So this was very significantly different from the routine anti-incumbency that we are so good in mapping. Oh, he's angry and that will swing and things will be done. So there was fatigue of voter with the set of people who were in power in Madhya Pradesh, not party, but individuals. And the moment that thing was in the campaign was addressed by the BJP, that they sent 7 union ministers, and the message was given that no matter what the BJP wins, Shivraj Singh Chauhan is not going to be the chief minister anymore. And that took the anger, fatigue against Mr. Chauhan away, and the core voter of the BJP came out, and it was purely turnout management, which actually pulled BJP out of that mess that it was in. So when I see that happening, and at that point of time, we realized that no, it's no more about campaign is no more about changing your mood, your idea, or your political choice. Is
Getting out the vote.
Is getting out. That's what the big, huge difference that has become, which is no more simple. Now, this could be also extension to what we have earlier discussed, Rahul, about the impact of the social media, about the polarization. And when I say polarization, it doesn't mean communal polarization. I'm talking about ideological, political polarization. People are getting more and more on the north and the south pole. There is hardly anybody on the equator these days, because algorithms work in that way. The moment you land, they will shift you, push you into one way or the other. And I think the new campaign managers are using that thing to actually to the hilt, if I may say so, uh, uh, to uh, not just ride the waves, but basically use that echo chamber to propagate their own thing. So there is no more, and it's a very, very widely researched topic actually in the West.
Hmm.
There are so many papers you are
Hmm.
aware
Yeah, yeah.
of that, you know,
The
that
term is get out.
yeah, the blue and the red echo chambers. So basically to get out.
Hmm.
So I would love to know how my other seniors here have seen this evolving over the decades. But this is what in data I have been
Okay.
capturing and I have been. Yeah.
Thank you, Yashwant.
Exactly what he said. Today the challenge is how do we nudge people to vote? The last election, 65% of people were going out to vote. In 2004, at an all India level, only around 40–50% people were going to vote. So we took the strategy to the blue ocean. We said, forget the red ocean, where there are a lot of fish and they're biting each other and there's blood. Let's go to regional India, where no one is talking to them. So 90% of the media money, all the ads went into regional publications. And we talked to people in their language. There was hardly any English advertising. And that is what clicked with the voter. Every exit poll had said that there's no chance. But you know, we started in March and this was the first phase. There were 3 more phases. You can't just go on saying a negative anti-incumbency campaign. You're so bad, you're so bad, you're so bad. The voter is going to say, fine, you've said it. You tell me if you come to power, what are you going to do for me? So that was the campaign we ran very close to voting time, what we were calling the vision campaign. If we come to power, these are our 6 bases of governance. Now, every poll had said that they're not going to make it. They're going to get drubbed again, sorry. But somewhere around April, you know, the winds of change were beginning to blow. There was another very big thing that happened. Sonia Gandhi came in these elections, and the way she rallied, I have seen it with my own eyes. I mean, she was doing 15 to 18 places. I think there was some talk about door-to-door campaign, etc. in the 70s and 80s. In India, one would say that today, because everyone's on the mobile phone and, you know, they don't feel the need to go out. But I think the on-ground rallies, the touchy-feely, I need to see my candidate is still very important. Coming to your question of how relevant was 2004 and 2024, you know, if you look at the muddas and you look at the topics, unemployment, mehengai, which is everything's become very expensive, what is happening for women, farmers, the topics are the same. But the methods to which you're reaching others, which is largely through the internet, okay? Because a phone, sorry, can I take yours? This is the game changer, okay? This is the game changer. This time, India is hugely penetrated on mobile. 1.2 billion people are on mobile and 600 million smartphones in India. Okay. Now, Indian youth, the digital natives, which is Gen Z, 18 million of them voting for the first time, they are spending 5 hours on the phone. And the others are spending 4 hours, even people like us. Most people are getting their stuff out of Instagram, out of reels, out of memes, out of parody makers, out of satire. The whole thing has changed, but the topics are the same. So I've been asked this question very often. What would you do if you were running 2004 now? I said, I would have had so much fun, you know, because we went with traditional. That time it was television, print, radio, wall paintings. In fact, because I was coming here, that's the last thing, and then yeah. I was seeing a video of these guys who used to make flags and badges, and people who used to do wall paintings, you know, at the village well and in little villages and things like that. Their business is down by 80%. They're saying nobody's buying flags and badges, and we are not painting walls, and we're not painting around a tree anymore. Everything's happening from here. And so, yeah, so those are my.
Thank you so much, Jayashree. Sashi, if I can bring you in, you will have to also take all the mics so that we can.
Yeah.
I hope the audio is working.
I think it has been now resolved. Let us hear your journey from hardcore Infosys techie to running Niti Digital and part of PM Modi's campaign in 2014.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. In fact, I've come here after 10 years.
Oh.
So, just before the 2014 election, I had come to CPR and so back here. I'll take off from where Jayashree ji left because her campaign of 2004 was the trigger for what I'm doing today. So the part that you left out was that in 2004, when the verdict came, I was motivated to start a political blog, which he will recall. We used to be quite popular those days. It was called Off Stump. And then that led to various things, and then I drifted from the world of tech to the world of public affairs. So 2014, that way, I think, was a very significantly different election. In fact, if I dial back 5 years prior to that, 2009, when the Advani ji was the prime ministerial candidate, I think that was the first election when digital kind of made a beginning. Those days, there was something called bloggers for Advani and then friends of BJP. It was the beginning of trying to use the internet to mobilize people to start campaigning, where white collar professionals, students, people who otherwise would not be typically associated with the campaign, because the way you were describing, the campaigns of the past were very early, right? Door to door, on the ground, very different. And I think 2009 was the beginning of trying to use the internet, and then 2014, of course, was the game-changing campaign in that sense. If you recall, between 2009 and 2014, several interesting shifts happened. Mr. Modi, back then when he was the chief minister of Gujarat, one of the things that he did, because of the perceived hostility or negativity of the mainstream media, he started consciously cultivating social media as an alternative means to reach out to people. And if you recall, he was one of the first politicians to be on Twitter. His first comments on any incident would be on 140 characters long, not a press release, not a press statement. He was also the first one to start live streaming his speeches on YouTube. So if you wanted to follow what he was saying, you didn't have to depend on the mainstream media covering him, which they were not anyway. But you could follow him on YouTube, and you knew where he was going, what he was doing. In fact, some of his speeches back then, 2008, 2007, very interesting. For example, after the 2007 Gujarat elections, which was in December 2007, 2008, January for Pongal, he went to Chennai to meet Jayalalitha, and he attended the annual event of the Tughlaq magazine, which is Chora Swami's, and he gave a speech extempore in English. You rarely see Mr. Modi speaking in English extempore, but that's a video that's available. So you could really see the persona behind whatever public image that was constructed, because he was accessible directly through YouTube, and I think that was a game-changing thing. So when in 2013, when it was clear that he's going to be the face of the BJP's campaign, at that time, one of the things in his mind was that a lot of people come to me and ask me that, we want to get associated with this campaign. How can we contribute? And he's talking not of, regular political workers, but professionals, students, people from all walks of life. So can there be a mechanism by which the internet can be used to basically bring people into the campaign who otherwise will not, get associated with the campaign? So that was the genesis for creating what was then called India 272, which was a volunteer portal, part of Niti Digital that you mentioned. And the unique thing about India 272 was that it was for the first time through the internet, anybody could get associated with the campaign and interact with him. So for example, he was coming to Ferguson College in Pune or SRCC in Delhi. He would put out a notice on the portal saying that, I'm going to give this speech, tell me what issues should I talk about, right? So that was the first time where people could get involved with the campaign in a way where whatever feedback or inputs they were giving would actually get reflected in what he says, right? So that built a very personal sort of connect, and I think that was a very pivotal change that happened. The second thing that we did, in the run-up to the 2014 elections was the use of the internet. Though he was live streaming on YouTube at that time, back then, you didn't have high-speed internet, right? And mobile phones, though hardly anybody was watching videos on mobile phones. So to watch his speeches live on YouTube, you had to have a high-speed internet, a desktop or a laptop, right? So that naturally limited the audience, digital audience reach. So one of the innovations that we did was to create an internet radio where the audio of his speech would be available at a very low bandwidth. So no matter where you were, what kind of device you had, you could tune in and listen to his, and that became very popular. So that was another innovation that happened. A third thing that, as we came closer to the election, was the organizing of groups within each city through this portal. Because these are people who mostly collaborated on the internet. I got to know Yashwant through Twitter, right? We never met in person for a long time. So there are a lot of these people. In fact, my blog was one of the focal points for a lot of these people to discover each other back in those days. And so the portal kind of became a meeting place for volunteers in one particular city to get to know each other and actually do on the ground events. So that was another, so digital to, on the ground organizing started to happen. And you could actually measure this in a very objective way because when Mr. Modi gave a speech in a particular location or something significant happened, you could see the activity spike on the digital platform. So you knew that, the physical to digital connect was happening and it was measurable. I think that was and we saw it most prominent in the cities that were digitally advanced, like Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and so on. Significant impact. The other thing that Yashwant was mentioning about turning out the vote. So for the first time, an experiment was done, which was called Namo Number, where using the missed call facility and the online portal, people were motivated to get other people to register and pledge their support. So this helped in two things. One, voter registration. Two, a commitment to vote and turnout. And three, you had an online database. Now you knew who the voter was, what his mobile number was, how to reach him or her, and then how do you bring them out. So I think all these experiments were done in that election. So in that sense, it was a very unique election in terms of creative use of digital technologies. However, I think what ultimately worked, and I think it goes back to the question of 272, and because I recall that day on India 272, we had a page ready that what if we hit that 272 mark, right? So we had mission accomplished. So maybe around 11:30 or 12, when we knew 272 is going to be crossed, we put that page out saying, mission accomplished, because none of us could believe that, it was actually going to happen. Because as you said, historically, a single party getting to 272 was, but it happened because of three things, right? Typically, if you go back to all these media theories, it's about the medium and the message. In this case, I think it was the medium, the message, and the messenger being credible to deliver it. I think all three came together. And then, of course, the internet was used in a very creative way to make it happen. Now, of course, we are in a very different era, right? Now, with the mobile phones, a whole lot of campaigning is happening through WhatsApp and highly personalized messages. For the first time, we have the use of artificial intelligence. Of course, a lot of talk is around deep fakes and all the negativity around AI. But then look at what Mr. Modi has done. He's used AI to translate his speeches into multiple Indian languages. So the language barrier is now broken, and you're able to reach audiences in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in the Telugu states, and so on. Right. So I think that's a very significant shift in this election cycle. The other interesting thing in this election, in terms of the use of technology that I'm seeing, is voters are now far more informed just because of the sheer volume of information that is hitting them. There's a lot of misinformation as well through WhatsApp and so on. So there is an interesting portal that the BJP has been using, which has gone viral in the last few days, where you're able to drill down to a constituency and then look at what has happened in that constituency in terms of 30 schemes, right? And then you're able to generate infographics on the fly in the local language. Okay. So there is very creative use of technology where data, AI, all coming together, and then it's in a WhatsApp friendly format, so you can just forward it, make it viral on social media and so on. So in that sense, the election has become far more personalized, far more targeted. But then I think it goes back to the fundamental question: will people stay at home or will they show up to vote? I think that question definitely remains, and especially with the kind of economic mobility that we are seeing, right? A lot of people are no longer living in their home villages and hometowns. They're probably working somewhere else. So how do you get them to vote? How do you get them to register in the first place? I think all those challenges definitely remain, but I mean, it's a dramatic change. You was mentioning 600 million in 2004. Today we are at 972 million voters. I think it's a huge shift, and I think that is the magic of democracy. But going back to your original question about campaigns, I think there's something very magical about the Indian election campaign. I remember as a kid seeing NTR for the first time when he was ousted out of power and he had to come back. It was just magical when you go stand on the roadside and you see him come there and the crowd just goes crazy. And I saw the same thing when Mr. Advani did his Rath Yatra. And then I saw the same thing with Mr. Modi's election speeches. It's a different atmosphere altogether. And I don't think that has changed. I think that still remains, and hopefully it continues to remain for years to come.
Okay, thank you, Sashiji. Now that we have learned about 2004 and 2014 campaign, quick round of questions to each one of you. And you'll have to take the mic first, Yashwant bhai. Two questions. I think like the first one has been partly answered by Sashiji. I was thinking, like, if you look at this election, maybe we are like, Delhi is going to vote in May 25th, so we are still a month away from it. But it seems that like the kind of campaign energy Sashi was talking about is missing. And perhaps it's missing because elections have become personalized. So the campaign for me is happening on my phone. I'm not able to see it on the ground and street, and maybe that's the reason. So any reflection you have on that? But the second thing, since you have been tracking data for like last 25 years, and something which is bothering me as a political analyst is that the economic issues are always there, right? Like, I don't think 2004 was one election or 2024. Like if you ask people the top three issues, price rise, economy, development, corruption, these are 4 or 5 things that have always dominated things. When can economic issues be turned into sort of like anti-incumbency campaign? And when can they just remain there and it doesn't matter, right? Yeah, theek hai, abhi kharab hai to kharab hai.
You are right that economic issues, even if you look into the data 30 years back, or maybe in CS data 40 years back, probably, unemployment, price rise, they were always there. There is not a single point of time when these two issues are not up there. You ask anybody, and even though I have some issue in the framing of the questionnaire on unemployment, because we have, by and large, copied the instruments so far, which have been applied in the West, and unemployment question in the West is very different from the unemployment question in India, particularly north of India. Like I am from UP, I know for sure in UP, and if you travel from the towards the east, job means sarkari job. Okay. Now, when you say, are you employed or unemployed, a person who is earning probably whatever enterprise he or she is doing, 50,000 a month, would eventually give you an answer, I'm unemployed. Because for him or her, employment means sarkari naukri, a government job. So I think some tweaking into questionnaires, and because the fact is that most of the policy related institutions, government institutions, while generating this data, also use the same terms and same instrument to map. So that's one thing, but yeah, you are correct that they have been always there. One thing which in the data we could capture, that people generally are upset about these two issues, but that doesn't become electorally explosive till the point of time a third issue of corruption seeps in. So the data of 2013 tracker tells us the movement, in between 2012 Gujarat Assembly election onwards, the number on corruption as an issue over those 18 months, they started propping up. That, is corruption an issue, like that. And that is where you get a TNT kind of explosive.
Okay.
Because I am upset with unemployment. I am upset with the economic situation. And if I get to blame you that I am hurt because of your corruption, then that's a very explosive dynamite kind of solution. And that's what happened in 2014. I think these two issued itself were not good enough to dislodge UPA 2. So much so in the city that we are right now sitting in, I guess that even before Mr. Modi, the most popular chief minister that India has actually witnessed in terms of pro-incumbency sentiment, Sheila Dikshit ji in this city. Even today, her name pops up, as the best chief minister Delhi has ever got, But she lost because of the image problem of UPA 2. If it was not for the anti-incumbency against the central government, she would have won again. I mean, that's a fact, the numbers show. So I think the third thing that you are asking me is the issue of blamable corruption. When I say blamable, personalized corruption charges, where people can directly relate that, okay, this guy is doing corruption and that's why our life is miserable. If that kind of connection is there, then boom, it goes off like anything. Yeah, but till if it is not there, then there is an issue because these two issues are going to remain there. But then public is analyzing or saying this in a different parameter. For example, you have seen the thing that we daily ask, which is the biggest issue in your life right now, a crisis. So these two are permanently there, but we follow up with a question: whom, according to you, can solve this particular problem? So all India level. Right now the numbers are for all the issues altogether is 17% for the Congress and approximately 36% for the BJP and almost 40% nobody can solve this problem. So that is also a permanent sentiment. But who can solve this problem itself is a bigger indicator on if these issues are going to have an electoral impact. There are issues, then there are election issues. So these issues are there, but at this point of time, unlike 2004, when Jayashree designed that campaign, that Aam Aadmi ko kya mila, that hit the nail on the head because India shining to ho raha hai, lekin mujhe kya mila? That was there. The problem is, Jayashree, that I wish Congress would have continued with consulting you because they are stuck in 2004 campaign. They are thinking what worked in 2004 is gonna work right now, which is not happening. It's a 300 million new voters, and that voter has moved beyond ki mujhe kya mila. The voters are now dealing with a person who is not just really good at selling the dreams, but who is also showing us some kind of a game plan and who is literally campaigning and making parents feel like मेरी जिंदगी तो ठीक नहीं है लेकिन मेरे बच्चे की अच्छी होगी. So that is where just having a negative campaign कि तुम्हें क्या मिला, तुम्हारे हाथ में क्या आया, is not gonna work anymore because people are looking at optimism. And by the way, Yashi ji can tell you, and even Shashi can tell you, Indians are die-hard optimists by DNA. The optimism curve of India's is always really high. It's something that has to do with our value system, our spiritualism, or whatever you can say, कि हमारी हालत बड़ी खराब है, लेकिन आने वाला समय अच्छा होगा. So that perennial hope, perennial optimism in the thing, I think BJP and particularly the team of Mr. Modi has cracked that understanding that, okay, we do something and we can always show the hope for optimism. Just that negative campaign and just thriving on the negativity is not helping anymore. So that part has moved on. Unfortunately, it seems like somehow Congress is still struck with the success of 2004, that this worked in 2004 and it will work right now. The situations look similar, but the message has to be different because the audience is now different and the medium is now different.
Thank you. If I bring in Jayashree ji, and I know you said, that if you had to do 2024 campaign for Congress, it would have been fun since 300 new voters have come into the picture and the entire way campaigns are being designed would have been, because of media penetration and everything, it would have been a new challenge. But if I may ask you two quick things. One, I think like what came from your as well as Sashiji's sort of reflection is that media slash technology, message plus messenger, all three have to work together for a campaign to work. You mentioned about how Sonia Gandhi rallied, and then you got a great tagline. Do you think in 2024, what is missing is sort of like all three elements, or even I can add the fourth element, which is machine, right? Ultimately, for any campaign to work on the ground, you need an organizational presence where BJP seems to still have a greater control over resources and machinery on the ground. Congress seems to be sort of like getting like narrower in terms of its organizational strength. So given the same issues, and could Congress have designed now, of course, it's late in April, but like same situation of 2003, losing three state elections, had they decided in January 2024, could things have been turned around? The reason I'm asking this is because in 2004, Congress and BJP were pitted at the same level. Both were 22 to 25% party, 150 seats. In 2024, BJP is twice large in terms of vote share and 5 times large in terms of seat share. So could something work, or it's a lost cause and only some competition could have been created, but not much?
I must place on record that I'm not a Congress.
No.
It was a professional job
Yeah.
I would have done for BJP also.
Yeah.
So because I seem to be answering but I will answer your question. Firstly, yes, when I saw I agree with what you said right in the beginning, that there doesn't seem to be a buzz that the general elections, I mean, somebody said there are two IPLs going on now, one is the cricket and one is Indian politically. 1 billion people are going to vote. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than this. And we say politics is the new entertainment. I was reading up about Gen Z, and they like politics a lot. In fact, there's one very interesting data. 20% of them say, I will not date or marry a person who doesn't go to vote. So they take it seriously. So coming back to when I saw the first lot of Congress ads that had broken, which I was not seeing anywhere. So I said, where are they advertising? And somebody sent me something from Times of India, Bombay. And it said, Mera Vikas ka do hissa. So they are questioning that I haven't got, like there's a woman making a very patla kind of tea and she's giving it to her husband and he's saying, what tea? And she's saying, oh, there's no money in this house to buy any property.
Yeah.
Okay, all that. So there are people who love the BJP. There are people who love Modi ji. He works very hard. He's very smart. And they've got strength. They've got muscle. If you see the advertising, it talks from a position of strength. Modi ji ki guarantee, which is, I'm here, he's here, bus. That's what the country needs. Or is par 400 par, which is, it's just a statement of confidence that we're going to do it. Okay, now again, it's a little manufacturer statement. Just like the Congress is, I thought it's Aam Aadmi 2.0, the same thing. And then they've come out with a line, which is not bad, which says, Haath badlega halat. Now, we can't say that all 1.2 billion or 950 million who are going to vote are all very happy with one party and very unhappy with the rest. There is actually, when does voting and advertising matter? It matters. If I'm diehard one party, I'm not going to change my mind, whatever you do. But there are a lot of people sitting in the middle and on the fence, and they say, I'm not going to vote for anyone. But if there is a strong campaign that happens, then you can shift priorities, images, which is what happened in 2004. I think the BJP has got, and I think all the other parties, I'm talking about even in Telangana, what happened in Karnataka, Calcutta, West Bengal, a lot of them are using influencers, YouTubers. YouTubers today have over 25 million followers. Someone sends me on WhatsApp or YouTube, I watch it, I send it to another 10, they're sending to another 50. This is what's going viral. And the whole activity is happening over there. I also came to know and this is amazing. I don't know if you people know that there is a complete shadow network taking place today in communication in this politics, okay, for political campaign, or what you call a surrogate network. So, for example, between January and March, 40 crores, 120 crores have been spent on social media, of which BJP spent 40 crore. 80,000 ads from the BJP handle. But there are other handles with names like Ulta Chashma, Meme Express, who are spending 3 crore, 5 crore. From where are they getting it? Who pays? None of us will ever know. Is the party funding it? Is some individual funding it? We'll never know. And these are the people that are creating actually some of the better creatives, some of the, they're not going under the Twitter handle of INC or BJP, you know, where you have to maintain at least a little bit of it. They are just going blatant, but they're not going in a way where the advertising can be pulled down. It's all very suggestive. So, you know, there's a whole ball game going on over there. And just as he said today, you can go down to the last village, the last mohalla, the last person over there. Because data is the new oil and today you can mine it. So you go on a travel site, you go on fashion, wherever the youth are going, wherever the middle class is, cookery show, wherever, and you're putting your ad over there. So what is going to happen to the Congress? Who knows? I don't want to make any judgment at this stage. I also don't know if 400 400 par is going to happen. We'll have to wait and watch. It's a very long 6-7 week election, which is, there's a lot of fatigue that'll set in, but I hope it's going to pick up some momentum and we're going to see, you know, on June 4th or June 3rd, whichever is the counting day, whatever's going to happen. But yes, for the BJP, I must say they have deep pockets. They work very hard. And there's some very smart people there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jayashree. Sashi, if I can bring you in and
one last thing.
Please.
One last thing. I think Bharat Jodo Yatra was good. I think that Pappu tag went. And what Rahul Gandhi did when he walked, I mean, lakhs of people were walking with him, but a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people were walking with him and covering it and reaching the youth. There was one thing he did with a girl called Curly Tails, and the young people here know. And he ate food with her and he talked about what he likes. And in India, we don't know politicians beyond what we see at on the 9 o'clock news, you know. So even, I mean,
Prime Minister also talked about Upma, how kind of Upma
and
he likes.
Beer Biceps, another big guy, he, you know, he did. So we're getting to know our politicians, and I think it's a good strategy. So a lot of new things have come up this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Friends on Zoom, if you have questions, just put on Q&A box and they will reach me. Shashi, quick questions on this. You know, one is, you know, I think at the moment, it seems like BJP is showing confidence in all its messaging. When do you, as someone who has been in the back room of campaigning, think of like the thin line between confidence and overconfidence? Right? And can sometimes campaign while you're trying to get out the vote. So 400 messaging can be to energize, but it could be also to a lot of people, जीत रहे हैं अभी क्या जाना अगर बैठते हैं, right? Like कौन मेहनत करेगा इतनी धूप में? Like how do you make sure like campaigns don't cross that? Like, for example, even with India Shining, I think if you read even Bhupender Yadav and Ira Patnaik's book, that once Pramod Mahajan came to tell Vajpayee that on the map of India that we are winning here, here, Vajpayee said, "Rehn dijiye, hum chunav haar chuke hain." So, because Vajpayee could sense that perhaps they had gone overboard with the India Shining campaign, and that's not. So, as campaign sort of people sitting in the back room, where do you think that same message, which can bring people to polling booth, can also sort of like make them sit at home?
I think that's a very great question. If you look at the 2004 example, right? I think the gap was in terms of the message and on the ground activity. With Mr. Modi and the machine that he has put in place, you know that, there is hardly any room for complacency because they're so flawless with that execution. And there is hardly any let up in the intensity. I mean, even in this election cycle, which is now the third national election cycle that he's running, right? Just look at the amount of work that happened just in the last few weeks, the number of rallies that he's done, number of roadshows that he's done, media interviews with, regional parties. The fact that nearly 300 plus candidates were announced way in advance, so that, there's pretty much predictability in every seat. The fact that nearly 100 sitting MPs were dropped sends a very strong message that, you can't take the electors for granted, right? You can't take the electorate for granted. So all of these are signs that, there is a target, which is 400. And if you, I'm sure even Jayashree would talk about this, that in typical business school parlance, you set a wildly impossible goal. It's a stretch target because it then motivates everyone to, work towards it, and you shift the goalpost. You get closer and closer to it, which is what happened even in 2014. When we said we'll call the portal India 272, we'll call the campaign Mission 272. In fact, we said Mission 272. Mr. Modi said make it 272 plus because we got to go beyond 272. We don't stop at 272, right? So that is the wildly impossible goal back then, and then it was crossed. So same thing. The mindset here is of setting 400 is not to take it for granted or sit back, but you got to stretch yourself and meet that target and get beyond it. So as far as I can see today, where we are with all the leading indicators, I don't see any complacency there. I see the same level of intensity and better use of technology so that it is far more targeted and it is far more accountable. In fact, one of the innovation that we've seen since 2014, we didn't have it, but we've seen it in 2019 and now, where the PM is directly interacting with booth level workers using his app and video conferencing, which is a completely different format now. Even the foot soldier is able to give his feedback and listen directly from the Prime Minister. I think that's that just tells you that they're not leaving anything to chance.
Thank you. Let me take some questions from the room. Harshit, can you help me with this? So 3 questions, something on Anas. Keep your questions short and crisp so that we can get more people to ask questions.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for this discussion. My question is to Yashwantji. As you said that unemployment, inflation has always been dominant issues since quite a long time. But when corruption is added, then it becomes a very, very sort of deadly cocktail in electoral terms. When we see Lokniti CSDS data now, so 55% of people across the regions, rural, urban and all, 55% people say that corruption has increased in India, with 20% saying inflation, unemployment, 23% or 70% saying inflation. So when all these factors come in, but then they show that 40% of the vote share of BJP is still intact. How do you explain that?
Let's take 2 more questions and then. Such short, quick, not comment. Your question.
Thank you, sir. All has been said, nothing more to say, but just one thing. Whichever party comes into power, in the past, present, or future, the purchasing power of the people keeps going down, down, and down. Everybody knows it. And still, they are winning, and they are winning. There are a lot of few factors. I will say factors. This is leader, cadre, cash on the top, strategy, media, anchor, and the richest people, the anchors. The TV and WhatsApp, state and church. But I say, because Rahul said, be short, my perception and experience in the field, I'm an activist. Word over, I've been word over. And in India too. And I've been grassroots. Money makes the mayor go. It's the money that finally decides. It's the cash that will decide.
That's a question, sir.
That is, I mean, what's your opinion on that? Okay. Is it the cash that will decide or something else will decide?
Sure. Okay. You have a question, ma'am? Yeah. Can you ask your question?
So we are talking about campaigns. We can also feel that while campaigning, candidates talk about negative aspect of different parties or candidates as well. What is the effect of this? Do voters actually get influenced by the negative
Negative.
statement made by the parties or candidates.
Okay. So we'll start with you, quick answers, and then others can also ask.
Point well taken. The thing is that is the corruption question or answers to that corruption question are aimed at local corruption, or is it aimed at people who are in power? If people in power, people who are in the local government in power or state government in power or central in power? Or rather, let me be very upfront. Is that anger on corruption aimed against Mr. Modi? Zilch, zero, nada. So, so much so that electoral bond became a non-issue. There was such a huge rally over here, not a single opposition leader made even mention of electoral bond. Because the thing is that you made a hue and cry, a big, huge issue, it was was supposed to become. But the moment the data is out and you are saying that, okay, there was X amount which came in and BJP got X by 2 and X by 2 was taken by the opposition parties. So the moment you say the rest of the money I took, but how can you say the money that you took was the corrupt money, but money which I took was not the corrupt money? There it goes. So that's why it's a non-issue anymore. And it's not an issue anymore. So I think the biggest failure or biggest issue that is working on the corruption plant right now is that on the personal image of the prime minister, there is he is like kind of a Teflon prime minister in a way. It just doesn't stick to him. All right. So that's how he has cultivated his image, and probably that's what is working for him.
Sashiji, do you want to answer the money question? And
Yeah, sure. So I think coming to the question of cash or role that money plays in elections, I don't believe that it is a defining factor, because we've seen several elections, contests, individual seats, where I recall my constituency in Bangalore, where I'm registered to vote. The JDS candidate was one of the richest candidates. He had several thousand crores of assets. He probably came third in that election, right? So money doesn't necessarily buy elections. I think that's a myth. On the question of corruption, I think Yashwant hit it on the nail. The prime minister's persona, where he's personally incorruptible and he's 24/7 on the job. He has nothing else that no other family, no other legacy. It's only whatever he's working. I think that image works very well.
Sorry to interrupt here. In 2013-14, I don't think a lot of people thought that Manmohan Singh was directly involved in corruption, and it seemed like there was no evidence to show that Gandhi family was involved in corruption. But yet corruption could sort of like become an issue. So how could it become then and not now?
Thank you. Because as I said, medium message messenger. Mr. Manmohan Singh was not a credible messenger. He may have been personally decent, but he did not stand up when it mattered. Right? I mean, look at the only bureaucrat who got jailed in that coal scam when no politician went to jail, because he didn't stand up and act when it mattered. I think that is the key difference here between Mr. Modi and Mr. Manmohan Singh. To the point on negativity in campaigns, I think the election, it is a choice of contrast, right? You got to contrast your what you are projecting versus somebody else. So there is going to be negativity, because that is how you make a sharp argument. And I still feel that India is far better compared to what I've seen in the West, where the elections are far more polarized, very, very personalized. Here we at least we draw a line. We don't peek into people's personal lives. We don't make them scandals just before an election. So that whole culture is not there in India. I think to that extent, we have a very, very positive, I would say, political culture.
Just add one point to what she has said. The most memorable anti-incumbent, anti-establishment election verdicts or elections in India were zero budget, 67, 77, 89, and to an extent, even 2004. Yashwant just mentioned. I don't think the resources of Congress in 2004 were any match for resources of the BJP at that point of time. Exactly my point. 70, you look into it and you will realize that the most historic verdicts when the public has given of India, they were on zero budget. That's what I wanted to say.
Jashri, if I may add two questions that have come from Zoom. Just to add on this point on negative campaign. So one is basically the person has asked, like in any film promotion, negative campaigning is also part of the promotional strategy. So how much role do negative campaigning play in sort of like, it can play for opposition for sure, because they have to attack the government, but incumbent playing a negative campaign against the opposition. So how much does that play a role? Second, and since you wanted to distance yourself from Congress, so let me ask you, someone has asked this.
No, I don't want to
no,
distance.
it's okay.
I'm very proud of
No,
2004. But,
I'm just asking.
I'm an
like,
Indian.
it's non-political, so I don't want
Yeah,
you
yeah.
to put it. How do you see Jan Swaraj campaign? Like, do you think, like, have you seen their posters or anything? This Prashant Kishore campaign on ground, and do you think it will cut ice at some point?
I've seen Prashant Kishore walking through a lot of villages in Bihar. I've followed a lot of his YouTubes and him saying that this is the way he's going to change Bihar, he's going to come into power, but it's going to be by going to each village, staying there overnight. And I watched all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's doing it very differently. He's talking to people, he's understanding their issues. He's not just giving some global statements and moving out. So you're asking me, will he succeed or no? And
No, like, just like from your perspective.
it's
someone who
a
comes from-
real hard work.
Okay.
And I respect it. I
Okay.
mean, it's amazing what he's doing. But we'll see what result he gets.
Because I think like what I actually wanted to know sometimes, and this I learned about 2015 Bihar campaign later on, that the reason the Mahagathbandhan then used yellow sort of like background for posters and everything, because yellow color can be seen from a
Yeah, yeah.
distance, right? So
Absolutely.
like someone like you who think of these things like color and format and everything, which campaign do you think at this moment is best crafted campaign?
For this year?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a very hard question to answer, but exactly what Yashwanji was saying, abroad, you say such bad things about the opponent, and here it's not like that. I'm actually enjoying the campaigns.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of jokes. I think the young people must be seeing all the memes and the jokes and the cartoon things, and they're giving the messages through it. But I think it's very entertaining. And that's the thing you have to hit at. You have to be entertaining. Negativity, you asked. I don't know whether I want to use this word, but as he's saying, if someone's been sitting in that seat for three times, three elections he's won, even a fatigue sets in, even if you're happy with that person. Now, if someone is just not moving out of that seat, you have to go hammer and tongs for him. So when we said Aam Aadmi ko kya mila, I mean, someone could say negative campaign, but that is the campaign that really swung it. I can tell you. There were 4 more campaigns that followed. One was the achievements campaign. Hey, we are the guys who brought in IIT, IIM. We are the guys who did all the public sector. It was like placing your visiting card again because people had forgotten Congress. Then the vision campaign, if I come, I will do this, this, this. But all that followed. This is the campaign when something went into people and said, yeah, actually, what have I got? So it has to be very personalized. And it's a part of the political campaigning that I don't know whether I would call it negative, but it's a raising of questions. And I think as anybody who's standing for elections, you have to do it. Otherwise, you're going to give a walkover.
Thank you. Second round of questions, quick 3 questions, and then we'll close with it. Yes, please.
My question is how AI will impact Indian politics.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
Nobody.
Or sir, नहीं
Okay.
एक बार में एक सवाल. Sir.
I think he wants an answer. I think you answered him.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yashwant also. Thank you so much. I think it's.
Thank you so much. Maybe it can be a little bit off topic, but I would kindly like to seek your assessment of the recent manifestos published by the BJP and the Congress. In your opinion, in which way would they resonate across the public in general?
Anyone else? Last question. I have something from okay, so I'll just add to these two questions. One is about basically India, like Indian youth, getting less swayed by promises, but they are basically becoming more ideological and partisan. And that basically is linked to like social media penetration and other things. Jayashiji, what you are suggesting as sort of like entertainment memes and other things, is it also that hate and prejudice and those kind of divide?
They're all embedded into those.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Like,
Uh,
Pranav had a
Pranab, yes.
Sorry, I was late and maybe this has already been covered, but I had a question on, so when we think of impact of campaigns and role of campaigns and increasingly research, something that Rahul also has been writing on consistently has been showing that there's greater increased partisanship in India, and a large section, which is we kind of see people move, there's some sort of a dwindling middle, and then more people who are kind of inclined partisan, have clear partisan identifications. In that sense, is the role of campaign moving more towards, say, an American style system wherein role of the campaign is to mobilize voters of your own party as opposed to, say, targeting a middle segment and winning over swing voters. So in that sense, even if the campaign is not able to change opinion, it still helps in mobilizing voters and ensuring, and victory depends on relative turnout.
Yes, that was the first thing that was discussed. This is what he started with. This is what Yashwantji started his opening
So-
remarks with.
So I will come down to what
whichever questions.
other thing that we talked about, I mean, I would like to answer your manifesto thing, It's important, critical, but not much detailing or not many people actually go into manifestos too much into detail, number one. They do go by the major things that are promised, sometime emotional, sometime hard on economics and other things. But I guess that eventually what matters is trustworthiness of the leadership on what you are promising. Will you be able to deliver it or not? I think 5 years back, Mr. Modi was promising 6,000 rupees a year, that too in 3 installments of 2,000 rupees each. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi came up with 72,000 rupees a kind of a counter that is not 6,000 a year, but 6,000 every month. But somehow, public thought a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. So it became a question of whether what is being said is possible and will it be delivered, or do they trust that person to deliver it or not? That is the first thing. On the negativity side, I do feel that too much of negativity backfires. It backfired in 2009 when Mr. Advani went personally negative against Mr. Manmohan Singh. It backfired big time. It backfired last 5 years back when Chaukidar Chor Hai campaign flopped big time. So I think unless there is a very clear-cut, idea of corruption happening and any individual is personally involved in that kind of corruption or not, too much negative campaign on any individual generally backfires. And people don't like that. Yes, people like something in good fun. That is fine. That is all well taken care of. But I don't think too much of negative campaign does good for any political party.
Your question on, what impact AI will have on politics, I think we're already seeing it, given India's diversity to be able to reach, voters in different regions of the country. It's important to be able to communicate in a language they understand. And I see AI playing a big role there. The other area where potentially AI can play a role, maybe not in this election cycle, but maybe in future election cycles, is making the messaging even more targeted and personalized. Because you have such large public data sets now available, so you can learn from these data sets and you can further fine tune your messaging. So maybe that's a potential application in the future. And perhaps we'll also see more creative uses of virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on. So I think those are all possibilities maybe in the future.
Well, I think he's also sort of like hinting at what would be the negative side of AI.
Negative side, of course, I think deep fakes already today, I think there was a complaint to the Election Commission by Amir Khan. So deep fakes are a serious concern. And also with what are very credible allegations of foreign interference. Right? Microsoft has already pointed out that China and other elements will be looking at using AI to interfere and vitiate the whole electoral process. So I think that's a big concern, and that's a challenge for the Election Commission because it's a completely new dimension, right? So far, the whole focus has always been model code of conduct, how to police the election inside India. But the Election Commission has not really looked at what happens when elements beyond our borders are trying to interfere or vitiate. And there's not a conspiracy theory. There is, we've seen in Canada, we've seen in Australia, even in the US election where Facebook was used in a big way. So foreign interference is a reality, and being an open democracy, open, with free media and so on, it becomes we are all the more vulnerable to these elements. So definitely, it is something that the Election Commission will have to look at. On the question of manifestos, I think two things emerge very clearly when we look at the BJP's manifesto and the Congress manifesto. That the BJP's manifesto is very, very forward-looking. So it's a continuity of what they've done, and they're looking ahead. While the Congress's manifesto seems to be a copy-paste of different disparate ideas, so that coherence is kind of missing. And I think it goes back to the overall messaging for this election as well. So that is one. Of course, Yashwant says manifestos are not that important, but in the case of BJP now, people are I think beginning to take it seriously because whatever they've promised, the big ticket items they've actually followed through. They were just not for a long time they used to be on the manifesto, but nothing would happen. But I think the last two election cycles we've seen that be it the Ram Temple, be it Article 370, they followed through on those. So so it remains to be seen if one nation, one election follows through as well. On what is happening ideologically with elections and partisanship and so on, and also I think related to what Pranav mentioned. I think with more and more information being, especially with the kind of exposure people are having through social media, I think opinions are getting more and more sharper and crystallized. I think it's more a function of that than anything else. I don't see people being card-carrying members of a political party in a very large sense. I don't think that's happening. It is just that people are more informed and hence more opinionated. And I think that is what is manifesting in this part of the debate.
Thank you.
I'll answer the question on the manifesto. I made the manifesto for Congress in 2004, and it's everybody's who's very important in the party works on it. It's a very important document for the political party. It becomes a very important document on the day it gets launched because all the media is there. Then the press carries it, they talk about the main points, and after that it gets forgotten. So very few people actually look at the whole manifesto, go through it. But a lot of parties promise that every year they'll do a review, whether the manifesto, they're keeping up with all their promises, what they said, governance, the freebies they'll give, or the benefits they'll give the consumer, the things that they said they will do, they do. But somehow I've very rarely seen follow-throughs on all those things. So I hope this time, it's taken a little more seriously. It is an important election document, but I think its life is for the day it gets launched and it gets covered, and then it sort of gets forgotten.
Thank you so much, Jayashree. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll meet soon with another session on how India votes. Hopefully, by the time election analysis is over, I managed to complete my 24 sessions that I had promised. So in my manifesto, I promised that 24 sessions on Indian elections. This one is the 16th. There are 2 more months.
I will vote for you.
But thank you again for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.